Welcome to Passion and Purpose with Pamela, celebrating all things woman. I'm Dr. Pamela Hardy Shepherd, here to ignite inspiration through conversations that spotlight women's power and their journeys. Let's share our light, our stories, and create a space of celebration for every woman. Here's to embracing our womanhood together. In this episode, we explore the vibrant world of business education with an exceptional individual named Dr. Marvee Marr, who brings a wealth of expertise and a comprehensive international viewpoint. Unlike typical educators, Dr. Marr's journey spans more than 2 decades, navigating through online and in-person higher education, developing innovative curricula, and providing student development. Dr. Marr's dedication to her profession extends beyond traditional academic settings. She has a distinguished background, having traveled to 94 countries and visited all 7 continents, including a recent journey to Antarctica in December 2023. Her global experiences are vast as a traveler and as a seasoned resident of various cultural environments, having lived and worked in 13 countries, 13.5 if you include Puerto Rico. Each location has contributed to her deep understanding of global business and business practices. Her blogs reflect on her vast travels, providing perspectives on the confluence of business, culture, and education through her varied experiences. Currently participating in a professor exchange program in Krakow, Poland, Dr. Marr continues to push the envelope, encouraging cross-cultural partnerships and enhancing scholarly discussions. Join us as we uncover the multitude of Dr. Marr's experiences, examining her unique real-world adventures lead to impactful educational opportunities for students across the globe. Prepare to embark on a journey beyond geographic limits, driven by passion, purpose, and an underlying thirst for knowledge. Welcome, Dr. Marr. Hello, Marvee. Okay, I introduced you, and if you could tell us a little more about you, because I know the audience cannot wait to hear.
Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm here speaking with Pamela from Krakow, Poland, where I'm staying for 5 months to teach a class in cross-cultural communications and to do research on international business and outsourcing. Little did I know that Krakow is actually the HR hub of this part of the world. So a lot of outsourcing going through Krakow. It's my passion. Someone says go, I say I'm packed. Let's do this. So that, if you want to think about me, think travel. I've been to 94 countries. I'm trying to make it to 100 within the next year and a half. The older I get, the more I like to participate in slow travel, a trip like this where I'm here for 5 months. Vacation's nice, but I really like to get involved in cultures when I go to another country. I like to know what the local people do. Like now I'm living, in a building with other people. Most of them are Polish. The store downstairs, everybody's Polish. So I'm just immersed in Krakow. I do have a quote that I like to say, that travel is knowledge with a view.
Oh, love it.
I think there's no better way to know not just the world, but yourself than to know other cultures.
I love that. I love that.
Because if nothing else, when you travel, you're going to experience different things, and your brain will automatically compare and contrast them to what you know back home. That is a learning process. You are learning from that. Also, when I travel or move, because I've also lived in 16 countries, I have a philosophy that keeps me somewhat grounded while I'm there. That if it doesn't impact my money, always number one, I'm a true capitalist, my money, my health, or my safety, then it's not really my business. And I think that helps me be flexible and adaptable. If I'm somewhere and anywhere I am, and something happens that's against my cultural norms, unless it's impacting my safety, my health, or my money, I just accept it, learn from it, and move forward.
I love that too. So,
and here I am.
So thank you for that, because it is so empowering to hear what you have done with your life. And I know many listeners want to know, like, how do you do that? It is the how. And if you could explain that a little bit, I think that would help many people to understand this is possible for you.
I think we talk a lot about consequences and choices that we make in life. I believe that life is basically just the consequences of every action, every step we've made. If 20 years ago I went left instead of right, if I would have taken the blue pill instead of the red pill, I wouldn't be where I stand now. So life is just that pattern. So in 1990, I think 1998, I want to say, I decided I want to see more of the world. Now, I was raised in the military, so I'd already spent some time in Europe and I'd been to a few different states, but I wanted to see the world. And people said to me, "What do you mean you're just going to move to another country?" I said, "Well, that's what I'm going to do because that's what I want to do. That's what I need to do." And once I did it, I just kept doing it and I got much better at it. I learned. Okay. Every experience gave me learning and knowledge for the next step. So, for instance, my first country or partial country, we'll call it, was Puerto Rico. Because my logic is Puerto Rico is part of the United States. I'm still a citizen there. I don't need a visa. Okay?
Mhm.
Puerto Rico was a hard life lesson
Mm.
because I went to Puerto Rico without a job, without a place to live, knowing all of two people on the entire island. And a friend of mine went with me. She stayed a week. We rented a car. We drove around finding me an apartment. This is literally what I did. I even shipped my car there. Don't ever do that, by the
Oh.
way. I shipped my car to Puerto Rico. It showed up a couple weeks later. It was very expensive. The government, which is where the port was, charged me extra more than the anticipated bill. But I learned from that. So after 2 years of being in Puerto Rico, trying to find a job, I finally got one job. Then I got a second job. I always like to have multiple multiple jobs. Yeah, I decided I wanted to move on. Now at this point, I've learned from this experience. So I start looking for jobs online. So my
Mm.
job offer is in Brazil, but I have an offer before I go.
Exactly.
They also found me an apartment with the roommate, which was interesting. Person I don't know, a British woman that we're not friends. We didn't know each other then, but I got better. So when I went to Brazil, I got there. The apartment wasn't ready, which was a little strange, and neither was the school. It wasn't even open yet. So I learned from that experience. Eventually, I got the apartment, got the job, etc. The next stop was Mexico. By the time I was going on to Mexico, I'd learned more.
How long did you stay in Brazil?
A year,
A year.
all
Okay.
of 2000. Yeah. And so when I went on to Mexico, I got better. They sent me a plane ticket and had a
Uh,
house waiting for me. So each step I got better at what I needed and negotiating and knowing my own worth.
that's
Also, note during that time, I'm also getting more degrees.
mhm.
So I had left the US initially with a bachelor's and a master's. I obtained a master's while I was gone, an MBA while I was gone. So I'm getting educated too. So my experience is mounting, my education is mounting. So by the time I get to Mexico, I'm actually working for the elite, prestigious private university in Mexico. That's the beginning of I would say that would be the beginning of my realization that I could build a career around this. Before it was travel and do whatever I could to pay the bills, ESL, whatever. Mexico proved to me, no, you can be a traveling type professor, that I can do this. So after 1 year in Mexico, I was living in a small city in the middle of the desert that wasn't overly entertaining. And so it really wasn't. So my colleagues left at semester. Every job I've ever had abroad, someone has left before their contract's over. I do not break contracts. I believe that's bad karma. If I signed a contract, I'm staying through the contract. So my director came to me and she said, "Are you leaving too?" I said, "Two? Who's leaving?" So both my colleagues and friends hadn't even told me that they were leaving at semester. So I did not. I stayed the entire year. And after a year, I realized, well, I don't need to go back to the US, but I don't want to be here, in this city. That director, who's still a friend of mine to this day, helped me find another position because they have like 14 campuses. So she emailed every campus, gave me a glowing recommendation. And then for my spring break, I literally spent my spring break going to 4 different campuses to interview. I had
Wow.
offers from all four. And I said, once again, I had a glowing recommendation from this woman. And so I got offers at all four, and I picked the one based on the challenge, which is probably not what most people would have done. All the rest were doing what I've already done, teaching culture classes, teaching English classes. This one wanted me to design their human resources curriculum, their program. To me, that's gold. That's a challenge. That's something I'd never done at that point. And so I took that position and I designed their HR curriculum and taught it. So like I said, each step I got better. Now, after 5 years abroad, I got a little homesick. I mean, there's ups and downs with homesicknesses and culture shock, but I got to where I felt like I needed to go back to the States for a while. So I came back. And this is something I tell all my friends. I just told a friend of mine this recently. She's thinking about transferring. She works for an airline. She's thinking about transferring to Honduras, but she's so nervous, blah, blah, blah. And I said, this is something people always say to me. What happens if you don't like it? And what I reply is, it's not a prison. It's a country. Leave. I don't write contracts myself personally. But an academic contract is 9 or 10 months. I can do almost anything for 9 or 10 months, right? Even if I don't like it. You know, I lived in a city where I barely left my house except for work, but I put in my time.
That's right.
You know? So like I said, each step kind of evolved. And then that wake up of, hey, people need professors all over the world. And I'm pretty good at it. Let me see what I can do. So that's what I continued to do. And then I got my doctorate. That made me even more popular. I actually finished my doctorate while I was working in Europe. So they had a big party for me. They're all excited. But the job in Europe, for instance, I taught MBA in 5 countries.
Wow.
Right. So, again, nothing I never thought about. I never thought I'm going to move to Europe and teach my. Who thinks about that? Right? I got the job in Europe because I was sitting in Ecuador, not doing what they hired me to do, which was on them, not me. And finally, I was like, well, I'm kind of tired of being here, but I didn't want to come back to the States. Started job hunting. That job in Slovakia came up.
So the thread is, I tried this, and each step became the next. And that's what we really want people to see. There's nothing that you do, nothing in life that you do does not bring a thread through the decisions that you make. And if you could talk a little bit about that, because you talked about, I made this decision to do this. You know, I don't want to say why did you do it, but talk about the decisions that you made. You said I could go left, I could go right, red, blue, green, whatever, but you made a concrete decision. And did you have any people in your life that were dissenters that like, why are you doing this? Talk about that.
Actually, the first time I left Chicago, when I moved to Puerto Rico, we had, I don't know, like 3 or 4 going away parties. I was still relatively young then. I was in my 30s. And so I remember that my best friend, who was still a good friend of mine to this day, he didn't show up for the last going away party, which was like I was literally on my way to the airport, and we went to brunch, and then they dropped me at the airport. He didn't show up. I was heartbroken that he didn't show up. Good friend. And finally, when I talked to him, he said because he didn't want to say goodbye. Mm-hmm. So when it started that way, and I can remember when I moved to Europe, I had a friend sitting in my condo crying on the floor as we packed up my house. She's like, I can't believe this. Yeah. So, they weren't necessarily against it from a logic point, more emotional. They just didn't want to see me go. But then I had other friends who were like, it's just one more place for me to visit. I mean, I've had a friend that's visited every place I've ever been, a couple people. Yeah. And so some of them they're like, everywhere she goes, I'll just go visit, you know? So, you have people on both sides. Mm-hmm. My parents are both deceased, so they haven't seen most of the travel. But my mother was still alive when I moved to Brazil. And my mother always supported whatever I did. It could be crazy. And she would say, it sounds like I'm crazy, but do what you need to do. You know? And I think it was because my father always saw me as a child because I'm his little girl. I'm the only daughter. I'm the youngest, you know. And so he died when I was 22. So he actually really never probably saw me as a full grown adult. But he never said, don't do it. He would just be careful. And he would say, why? But he never said, don't. I think I had told you a story before that I have 2 older brothers, and my oldest brother, who's 8 years older than me, so he kind of thinks he's my parent in some weird way. He was against my lifestyle forever. every Christmas that I saw him, anytime I ever talked to him, when are you going to settle down? When are you going to get married? You know, when he met a guy who was dating, he was so excited because he thought she's going to settle down. And then about, I don't know, I was living in California, so probably about 2015 or so, I get a call at work, not my cell phone. My brother actually calls my office, which I didn't know he had my office number. And he says to me, he tells me a lot of personal things, but his bottom line to me was, I'm sorry, all these years, me telling you what to do, and you're really living the best life. So now, no matter what I do, being here in Krakow, I get a message from him, live your best life, sis, you got this. Yeah. So it's nice that he came around and started supporting.
What do you think made him change his view, his perspective?
Oh, I know what. He told me.
Okay.
He reconnected with an old love that we knew, someone we knew in Germany when we were kids. He's 8 years older, so I'm a kid. He's a teenager. So he reconnected with this person, and it made him realize how many things he had done in his life because he was supposed to, not because he wanted to. And I think when he started thinking about doing things you want to do, who came up? His little sister. It was like, no one I know does more of what she wants to do versus, and I think it just made him realize there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
And so I never made a plan. Well, I eventually made a plan, but it wasn't like I was 21 years old and had this life goal to see the world and do this. But as we said, each step I got better at doing it. And as I got better at doing it, I realized that it's part of my core of who I am. The 2 years of COVID when I couldn't travel, I felt like limbs were missing.
I bet.
You know, I travel domestically, but not being able to go abroad for 2 years is huge for me. I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting jittery. I was going through withdrawal almost. And so for me, that I find that it is part of who I am. It's my essence. And I never had an experience anywhere, and I've had some not so great ones, that has made me say, you need to just stay at home. You just go back to the States and just stay there. Buy a house, settle down, and do it. Nothing is made. Nothing that has happened has done that. The only thing that's happened the things that have happened, what they make me think is, what more can I see? What more can I learn? Where else can I go? I mean, I've seen all of Europe pretty much. And so now I'm like, so when I leave here, I have like a month before I have to get back to the US. I'm going to go to Southeast Asia. That'll be vacation. That'll be my pseudo summer vacation. But just that sense, of that's a place I haven't seen. That's a culture I haven't experienced. But though there are probably people I've met from that culture, that drives me too. I'll give you an example. I just started my class here in Krakow, and my class is full of international students. Okay, I was supposed to have 13 people. There were 26 the day class started. I heard my name, guy. I actually told, you're famous, because I am online, so people, found videos, etc. During my class, they're all international: Italy, Spain, Japan, but no locals, nobody from Poland. So English is our common language. Okay. So after the class, a student from Germany, very nice young woman, came up to me and she was asking me some questions. She said, I have to tell you something. And I said, yeah. She said, every single thing you said, I kept thinking, I need to be like her when I grow up. I said, what? She's like, literally. She's like, people, places, concepts. She's like, it's like you're living. And I said, well, aren't we all? And she's 24 years old, right? So that makes me realize what I'm doing is important.
Yes.
And it may not be for everybody, but for the people who want to learn that from me, I'm here to teach that. I'm here to be that role model.
And to your point, no, it isn't for everybody, but it is the possibility of what it could be. And you see, if you can't see it many times, you can't be it. But then there is somebody that is doing exactly what you may want to do. And there's a lot of people like, oh, that isn't for me, but you don't know it's for you if you have never seen it placed in front of you. So exposure is everything. At least I believe it's everything. It gives you another perspective to consider. Oh, maybe I could do that.
And think about, I've worked in like Platteville, Wisconsin. I currently live in Utica, New York. So I'm in places that small communities where people don't think globally. So I will tell you, like when I worked in Platteville for the 1 year that I was physically actually there, um, I have several students I'm still friends with, but I have two specifically. One got married, and as soon as they both got married actually. And I have to say, it kind of hurt me a bit because I thought it was going to stop them from doing some of the things I knew they wanted to do. Because they had both spoken to me and said, until we met you, we never even thought about the rest of the world. Like we didn't even think, hey, I can get a job anywhere. Because I would tell them things like, hey, you just got your bachelor's degree. You want a job in, say, finance, whatever it is. And if you can't find that job, why not go to China for 6 months and teach ESL and teach English for the experience?
Yes.
And so they're like, oh, I never thought of that. I said, just do it. So both of them got married. And I immediately was like, oh, but one got married and still went to Ghana for 5 months to work on a project without her spouse. So I had to give her big kudos for that. They also adopted 2 foster children. So they're definitely, The other one went back to New Zealand where she had been before to do a 6-month contract. So I was very proud of her too. And that student also has twice been a surrogate for people.
Oh,
so these are incredible women that I can look at and say, I was a role model. And they tell me all the time, they're like, you helped me move this direction. So, and again, it's not a conscious choice. It's just who I am. And people, especially young women, will be like, if you can do it, I can do it. I said, exactly. I have poor health. My health, I've had doctors say to me, are you insane? What are you doing getting on a ship when you're having heart surgery? Because that's not going to stop me. And I said this to my doctor point blank. He couldn't disagree. I said, well, let's be honest. If I die on a cruise ship or I die in my apartment in Utica, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
And he says, yeah. He goes, that's a valid point. I said, well, they have doctors on ships. He didn't know that part. It made him feel better, that there's doctors on ships.
Oh.
But again, I have my own barriers. I don't want anybody to think this lifestyle choice hasn't come without sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And that I've had to overcome my own barriers. One of the barriers I discussed with you previously is I am horrible at learning foreign languages. I'm not even going to lie. I'm horrible at it. Some of it might be lazy, but I'm definitely horrible at it. But it doesn't stop me. I do not speak a word of Polish, and yet I'm sitting in
navigating well.
Yeah. But I will tell you something else that I've gotten better at is I've gotten better at admitting my shortcomings. When I used to be in countries, I felt guilty when I didn't speak their language. And this is probably something that people are probably thinking about. You feel bad. For example, I have an African-American male friend who lives in Prague. He's lived there for 30 years.
Oh.
Ironically, we both went to high school in St. Louis. We both moved to Chicago, but we met in Prague. We're the same age.
Unbelievable.
My friend came to visit. He went to high school with my friend in St. Louis. That's how the world works, that I meet this person. And he thinks he met me in Chicago, years ago at some event, which is possible. So, and the whole time I lived in Prague, which I left Prague about 10 years ago, he didn't speak Czech. I didn't speak Czech. So this time when I visited him, he's starting to speak Czech, right? So my friend that's with me says, oh, I'm impressed by his Czech. I said, first of all, you have no idea if his Czech is good or bad because you don't speak. Exactly. He can be saying anything. I said, and secondly, he's been here 30 years.
That's right.
So him and I had a discussion on this just recently. I was in Prague, and we discussed that. We discussed how we feel about that. And he said he feels guilty. He said he will lie to people and tell them he's only lived there 5 years because he doesn't want anybody to know that for 30 years he didn't learn the language. Because it's kind of embarrassing. Because people say to me, you lived in Slovakia for 5 years, you never learned the language? I said, well, technically, I traveled. I worked in 5 countries. So I wasn't really in Slovakia the whole time. Plus, if you work in English, that's what you speak every day.
That's what you speak.
Yeah. So people don't realize that. And people want to speak to you in English, which is another issue when you're abroad. When you try to practice the local language, they want to practice English with you. And the bottom line, and I can't say this enough, if you speak English, you will find someone to help you everywhere.
That is
I
true.
have been all over the world, and I walked into a bank in English and said, "Can someone please help me?" In Slovakia. And the three people who spoke English all responded. But it took me a long time to get that confidence because, I do kind of feel a little guilty. I'm in your country. I should speak the language because people always ask me that. How many languages do you speak all that travel? Well, do you really think I speak 94 languages?
Oh, absolutely
I've
not.
been in 94 countries. Yeah. So I said, no, I speak cultural acceptance. That's how I see it.
And what is that? When you say cultural acceptance, what is that?
Yeah. I feel as if I respect the cultures I'm in so that when I do need assistance, that people will help me. I'm not rude. I don't make assumptions.
Yes.
I say thank you and please in English to every single person, even if they don't know what the word means, because it's kind of a given. If you give me something, I say thank you, you kind of can assume what it means.
Yes.
I pay attention to the culture. Like for instance, one of the things that's a cultural norm in Eastern and Central Europe is to be fairly quiet in public. Like if you're on a train or a bus, there's no loud noises, no one's trying to sell you socks or anything, which is interesting. And so I abide by that. Well, I'm usually alone too, but I wouldn't get on my phone. I don't do any of that stuff. So
not with headsets and or music playing, and
you can as long as you have earbuds in. And I'm
right.
telling you, I was on a tram the other day on my way to work, and this guy was loud on his phone, and people were giving him dirty looks. I mean, it's not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
Yeah. When I lived in Slovakia, now that was 10, 11, 12 years ago, my friend's grandmother told me, she said, don't laugh in public. Here, people think you're crazy. And I laugh all the time. So it took a lot for me not to just be, I was like, okay. But usually I'm alone, so I have no one to laugh with. But if I was looking at my phone or something. So respect the culture. I don't have to agree.
Right.
I might think that's insanity, but that's irrelevant. I'm in their home. This is like walking into someone's house.
Yes.
So I'll be honest, I'm not going to learn Polish in the 5 months I'm here. I don't think I could if I wanted to, but I will continue to be the nice, polite person and respect their culture. I mean, I had a guy the other day, I don't think he spoke English, but he said to me, I was in the store downstairs, and the young man that works at the store speaks English. So we were like, hi, how are you? And this older gentleman kept staring at me, which is unusual in Poland. I haven't had a lot of stares. But his stare wasn't, you look different. His stare was a man staring at a woman staring. I know the difference. It was more of that. So then he kept looking, and I looked at him and he said, Serena Williams. That's all he said, because I don't think he actually spoke English. So he just said, and of course I got the point. And even the guy working kind of laughed. And the guy working is very young. And I looked at him and I said, oh no. And he goes, yeah. And so the guy working started laughing. And I said to him, I said, I wouldn't mind her money. Or her physical fitness.
I'm not her.
Well, I don't actually think I look like her. But again, 10, 15 years ago, that would have been more of a trigger for me. Everywhere I go, you can't just be a Black woman. You have to be a Black woman who reminds you of someone. I've been Oprah.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, I think it was just the hair for Serena Williams because I think that's probably the last time he's seen a picture of her. So that really would have been. But again, I'm in his country. I was happy he knew who Serena Williams was. I mean, think about it. Why would this random older gentleman know a Black woman playing for the U.S.? So I was just happy that he actually, knew who she was. So that's part of that cultural respect. And now if we were back in the U.S. and someone said that, we would have had a different conversation.
It would have been. Yes.
Yeah, I was just like, no, we kind of laughed about it. And I was just thrilled with the fact that this random person who knows he heard me speaking English would even speak to me.
That's true. That is so true. And that is a great way to look at it, because I have been Tina Turner. In Egypt, my husband was Morgan Freeman. My husband didn't look anything like Morgan Freeman, and the people would follow us around. So I get it. And we're just like, yeah, oh, okay. and respect the fact that they know these people, and that's a really valid point. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because in many countries, if you are a Black woman or a Black male, you do get stared at, and understanding where you are and not take it offensively, like, I am offended, what are you looking at? In America, the culture is a little different. And when you said about not talking on your phone, well, here in Texas, they talk on their phone in the grocery store and at the gym. I've never seen anything like it coming from California.
FaceTime out loud, so you can hear both sides.
I was like, what? Why are you working out, talking on the phone?
Yeah.
Or you're grocery shopping and you're having this long conversation. Yep. So for me, that was different. And I just like, that's what they do. I don't have to do it, but whatever, and just keep moving. So culturally, you adapt to wherever you are, whether you're in Europe or whether you're just in another state. It's a cultural shift, and then you just deal with it.
And just, again, I just keep in mind, how does this impact me? It doesn't really. Right? Yes. One of the things that's very difficult for me as I travel, and it's very prevalent here, is they don't say, excuse me, thank you, please. Occasionally I hear people say thank you. I do know the word for thank you. But in the United States, we have a very large personal space bubble. We have actually the second largest to Japan. Japan has the largest personal space bubble, according to studies. And so if you even walk by someone in the United States, you say, excuse me, or I'm sorry. You don't have to touch them. Just the fact that in fact, I've had European friends say to me, that's so weird. You didn't even touch them. I say, but we're in their space bubble. Like if you're in a grocery store and someone's looking at a shelf and you walk in front of them, you say, excuse me. Well, they don't do that here.
No.
And so I see it a lot at the grocery store where people will be like right behind me, on me, trying to get by, but they don't say anything. So they kind of scare me, because all you say is, excuse me. I don't care what language is in. If you said something, it would make me move or turn around, but they don't. They kind of push by you, squeeze by you. It's a lot on public transportation. When I'm trying to get off, I'm all, excuse me, please, excuse me. And people are ignoring me. Even if they, and that's actually, I know this because I've lived in Prague and Slovakia, which is all part of Central and Eastern Europe. So I knew that. So I was recently speaking to another expat who happens to be British, and she was saying how rude she finds that. And I said to her, I'm going to be honest with you. So did I 10, 15 years ago when I first experienced it. But then I've come to the conclusion after meeting people, that's not the intent.
No.
No, because they're actually nice people. If they speak English and you speak to them, you will see that. It's not the intent. It's some cultural norm where you just don't do that. Maybe it's the idea that you're disturbing people you don't know because you're talking to them. I don't really know where it comes from, but it's the norm. And I can tell you a person's culture just by how they interact with other people.
Yes.
And that's what I mean about, I spend a lot of time studying culture and understanding. So like if I'm in a museum, I'm like, oh, that group's from here. And not because of the language, just because of the way they behave. Yes. Yeah, their body language, certain mannerisms, So, but I think it's important, and I said this to the British lady I was speaking to, I said, I understand it. And I understand because yesterday I was getting off the tram, it was crowded, people were pushing me, people wouldn't move out of my way. And I did inside, I didn't say anything, but I got that, why don't you move? What's wrong with you? And why are you acting this way? And I remembered, I'm in their country.
Their country, yes.
I'm in their country, It is what it is. Just move on. So like I said, it's a lifestyle choice that comes with pros and cons, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
I love that you say that. And I am a traveler, but you are the traveler. And seriously, and you have inspired me. I've had the blessing of living outside the country and traveling to many countries, and continue to travel. And my itch happens like once a year. So it's like, if I don't go somewhere once a year outside the United States, it's like, I understand that itch to move. However, you inspire me. You inspire me for all that you do and all that you have done. And you are a beacon for many women, and I'd say anybody, but right now I'm speaking to you women, she is the beacon because you give us the possibilities, whether the pros, the cons, whatever it may be, you're giving it to us as a gift. And I so appreciate that. And I would just like you to talk about any of the cons, any of the things that, how you have to change your mindset. What does that look like to, we talked about behavior and going, cultural differences, but what do we have to do to even get close to where you are with our mindset? What do we have to do?
It's actually kind of interesting because I haven't lived in this part of the world in about 10 years, right? And so when my job in the US, well, actually, I said, where can I go? What opportunities do we have? So actually, it was almost accidental, I found out. So the person who was over our international program was leaving the job, and we're friends. So she sent me an email to tell me that she was leaving in a week. And I said, wait, before you leave, what? And then she said, we have one program, here's the info. And then she was gone. So this 18-month process to get here, I don't think the word challenge even remotely gives credence to what I went through from both ends. So my home university didn't know the process or what to do, and here didn't. So the only thing that was in my brain, and even my colleagues are shocked I made it, is I'm going to Poland. I'm going to Krakow on this date. I'm going to do this. So it's more of a mindset. I said, I'm doing it. And I almost actually felt like some barriers were intentful, like people weren't sure they wanted me to do it.
Mhm.
But I said, I'm going to do it. And of course, people will ask me, do you speak Polish? No, I don't. Well, then what are you going to do? Well, obviously, I'm teaching in English, or they wouldn't allow me to do it. So use a little common sense. And the research I'm doing is all in English. So I've added to a research team. I just met her actually on Thursday. Delightful woman. But the book she's already written is in English. So we're just doing an edition. And so, it's, to me, it's about having, I don't really want to say goal setting because that triggers a lot of people because you have to set goal. I guess this was a goal. But to me, it's less of a goal and it's more of just a reality. If I say I'm going to do it, it's going to happen.
Yes.
And people are shocked because I'll say things like, this. I said, I went to Antarctica I brought 2024 in Antarctica on a ship in the middle of Antarctica outside of Elephant Island was 2024. And people didn't believe me when I said I'm going to Antarctica. They said, whatever. I said, I don't kid about travel. If I say I'm going, I go. So it's that mindset, and I think what stops people is fear, especially women, and rightly so. I will never tell you not to be afraid because fear helps you stay alert.
It does.
I pay attention to where I am at all times. I am prepared. So I'm not saying don't be fearful, but I also can't say enough. Just like I just said to my friend who was like, "That's why I love you." You can always leave.
Yes.
I said, if you go somewhere, even though I personally don't break a contract, I'll give you an example. I had a friend go to Abu Dhabi and she just could not adjust. And she left after a semester. But she said she just couldn't. That same job, same company, same university, offered me a job in Abu Dhabi. And this is how I knew about them because she had told me. And I was still willing to give it a shot because I'm not her,
True.
But I was also smart enough to know what I would do and what I wouldn't do. And what they said is you have to sign a 3-year contract. And I said, I will not do that. You get 1 academic year from me. And then if I choose to stay, I will renew. And they said, no, you have to stay 3 years. And I said, well, then I'm not coming. But again, I know me. I could have lied. I could have signed the contract. I mean, you can't stop anybody from leaving, but I didn't want to do that. I believe in transparency. So I know what I'm willing to do and what I'm willing to accept. So know yourself.
I love that.
Always keep in mind, no matter how fearful you are, no matter how much you think what might happen, you can always leave.
That's right.
There's nothing holding you to these places. I just met a friend who went on vacation and left early. She was like, I just wasn't loving it, so I left. That's on you. I know that's weird. It was like a 2-week vacation, but she lasted 10 days. Yeah. Yeah, I've left hotels on vacation. Like I've switched hotels. I've done something like that, but I
Right.
never left the country. She literally came home. She was homesick. She was Mr. Dog, etc. Um, so, but she's a good example of she followed what she needed to do, and for her,
Sure.
she needed to get on that plane and come home a few days early.
Mm.
Again, I personally never broken a contract, but every single job I've had abroad, someone has left. I had a colleague run out the building in the middle of a semester yelling "Viva la Revolucion." He's trying to get the students to go on strike. They're like, we're not doing that. Again, because he didn't know his culture. It's like, know your culture. They're not going to do that in Slovakia. Okay. Um, so, for me, it's a passion, but I
Mhm.
think anything you want to do in life, you have to face your fears. And those barriers are mostly mental.
That is so
You know,
true.
what's the big one? I don't have the money. Sure you do. How much do you spend every day on coffee?
Thank
How much
you.
do you spend on lunch every day? I don't do any of that because I don't drink coffee and I don't eat out. I cook. You know? So it's just a matter of a priority. Save $50 a week. And before you know it, you can be on a trip.
That's right.
Travel's also not as expensive as people
As it
think.
used to be. No, it is not.
And if you can't afford it, go work somewhere
Mhm.
because somebody else is paying for you. Volunteer as long as they pay for the plane ticket.
That's right.
There's a lot of opportunity now for house sitting internationally, pet
Mm.
sitting internationally. It's bizarre that someone would bring you to another country to watch their pet, but they will. So strange, but they will. I have a friend,
Wow.
last 5 years, she has not paid for one hotel. All she does is house sit, pet sit. Well, that's it. Like whatever someone needs her to do, or she did an exchange once where they stayed in her place and she stayed in her place. They did exchange their
Yes.
homes. But for 5 years, she has not paid for a place to stay abroad.
Amazing. I love
Again, that's fearful. I mean, that's fearless, but she
it.
was
It
full
is.
of fear when it started. I mean, walk into somebody else's house, take care of their pet. I wouldn't even do that. But again, she's made this choice. She's made this lifestyle decision. It works for her. And if ever she feels like she's in danger or something's not right, she can just walk
Oh,
away.
right.
I
And I
think that's
love that you keep saying that because many times, and you've said it at least 3 times, and people need to hear this. You do not have to stay someplace you do not want to be. If it doesn't work out, because people say, "Oh, you're moving to Texas. What if you don't like it?" It's like, well, we don't have to stay here. We don't have to stay here. Will just pack up and we'll leave. Will it take a little more? Absolutely. But we do not have to stay here. We want to give it a try. And if we don't like it, well, there's a lot of things I don't like. But if in fact it does not agree with our the way we live, then it's time for us to go somewhere else. And maybe it'll be outside of
exactly.
the country. But
Exactly.
no, you
Again,
don't have to stay someplace if you don't like
I'll give you an example. When I first moved to Brazil, I thought I was doing better because I'd left Puerto Rico. Brazil sent me a plane ticket. So no, they didn't send me a plane ticket. Mexico did. So I hadn't got to that stage yet. They didn't, but they told me they would reimburse me if I stayed over a year on the contract. They would reimburse me for the plane ticket. Now, that's obviously an incentive to stay.
it. Sure.
But again, if you feel sad, threatened, whatever you feel, buy your own plane ticket and go home. I mean, do what you need to do. Okay. So in this particular case, the guy was, I'm not calling him a scammer, but a lot of what he told us wasn't true. And he was British. The
Mhm.
Brazilians actually, after we left, this is how kind of sketchy he was. So while I was in my first city in Brazil, I got hit by a car.
Oh,
I was on a what they call a moto taxi, which is a motorcycle taxi, which means I was paying for that ride. I ended up not paying, obviously, because I was in the hospital. But, but
I'm not laughing, but oh,
yeah, in front of me on a moto taxi, 5 o'clock in the morning, we're coming home from a long night of partying, and a car literally just hits us just like that.
oh,
My
yeah,
roommate doesn't even know this because she's, a front, way ahead.
in the
We don't
front.
have a phone. For 3 days, she had no idea where I was. I was in the hospital. So I get hit. Again, I'm on a motor taxi. The driver and the motorcycle fall on top of me. I have that, the exhaust burn on my leg
On
still
your
from it. So I'm laying there. I don't speak Portuguese, but I do understand some because I speak some Spanish, so, but I'm in shock. I'm just like, what is happening? People stop, random people. One guy stops who speaks perfect English. So he becomes the translator. He gets me an ambulance. And I can tell people I've always relied on the kindness of strangers. People will come and help you. People will. Yeah, I think in the US, we've convinced ourselves we're afraid of everybody.
Yes.
But in most cultures, even in the US, people will come to your aid.
They will.
So the ambulance comes, the driver of the car leaves. By the time the police get there, he's gone. I'm like, wait a second, he should be liable. I went to the hospital. I will say the taxi company paid my hospital bill, and I did obviously pay for the ride, so they took care of that. I was in there for like 2.5 days. When I finally got home, my poor roommate, she was like, I don't know where you've been for 3 days. Right?
Oh,
But the thing about what happens in this situation, so the person I worked for, the kind of scammy guy, was upset that I was going to miss a week of work. I couldn't walk because of the injury. And so he was not being kind. So he was telling my roommate stuff. She was coming home and I guess she had had an altercation with him and said, the woman got hit by a car. I mean, come on, give her a break. Well, in the end, he chose to let me go because I was going to miss a week of work. Obviously, I could have sued him or whatever because you can't just, but I was like, whatever. So I had met another woman who lived in Sao Paulo, the bigger city. I was in a smaller city. So I said, I'm going to move to Sao Paulo. No, I'm in Brazil, bedridden at the moment, but I got a computer. So I was like, I'm going to move to Sao Paulo. So first I email her. She goes, yes, I'll help you find apartments. Thank you. Then I start job hunting. I just start sending out my resume. I got like interviews, made them all within 2 days. By the time I could walk again, well, it took a while. My leg got infected.
Oh.
So I was going to come back to the US because I was getting concerned. I mean, a homeless guy looked at my leg and said, that's disgusting. Yeah, I was like, that's not good. Like just a random guy in the street. So I started wrapping it up because it was pretty infected. I actually, strange enough, met a Argentinian man in a bar at about 2 a.m. who took me to the emergency room to get better antibiotics. And he paid for me. Never saw this guy again ever. Just random stranger. He's like, you can't, that's infected. He took me, they took my blood. They said, yeah, they gave you the wrong meds. They gave me new meds. They just took care of it, right? I know, just strange things. But all of this is happening. And the only thing that almost made me go home was a threat of having my leg amputated, obviously, because I can't get great gangrene here, in Sao Paulo. So once he took me to the hospital and we got it together and the infection went away, I had 4 or 5 job interviews. I got 3 or 4 offers. My friend that I had met helped me find an apartment. Her and I went through the newspaper. I didn't speak the language, so that's why she was with me. People I rented from ended up speaking English, so that wasn't an issue. I got an apartment. I got a job within walking distance of the apartment. I mean, I did all that because I knew that I wanted to stay in Brazil. And just because this one situation had become negative, and he wasn't even Brazilian, so I couldn't blame the country on it for him, that I wasn't just going to run home. Once my leg was okay again and I could walk and everything, I was like, I can do this. So I just moved to the bigger city. I did that, and then I stayed there. I'm still in touch with those people too. Yeah.
Now,
but again,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But again, it was a mindset. Yeah. It was a run home. I also kept thinking, I can't go home with my leg like this. My mother will have a meltdown. Because she was like, what did you do to yourself abroad? I'm like, they need to fix it. And so, but in my brain, like I said, besides that little health issue, nowhere during all that drama was I thinking, I'm just going to go home.
Right. Because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, it's like, I know you said, do what, basically the passion that you have. And I'm sitting here saying, where do you get that? Where does that come from? How, it's like, it's very contagious, and I love it because, we can have all the education we want, but travel is the education. Living in another culture is the education. I have learned more traveling than I could have learned from a book. So I'm saying to you, where does that come from? Because I get excited just listening to you. And I'm saying, how do you, you've told this, but I'm going to keep asking, where does that come from? If you can
Well,
explain
people
it.
say I'm crazy.
No,
I'm not kidding. People say it all the time.
I don't
So
think
I just recently had a friend reach out to me, a friend, an associate. It's my friend's ex-wife. Uh, and actually, I just realized this recently that I'm friends with a lot of my friends' exes. But to me, that it kind of makes me feel good because it means I've developed a different relation with them. It has nothing to do with, they're not like, oh, you're their friend. They're just like, I met you, I like you, I'm staying friends with you. I'm friends with my oldest brother's ex-wife, who they divorced 40 years ago.
Wow.
And her and I have keys to her new house. I mean, that's how close we are.
Oh my goodness.
Because I don't have any biological sisters. So that's part of, I think, what kind of drives me. It's kind of in a weird way. It's this sense of, well, people say this to me all the time. You've never met a stranger. Because I was thinking about, I don't know these people, and a friend of mine said, please, you've never met a stranger. So I have. So that kind of drive. So again, I said, I'm in Krakow, Poland. So this associate of mine, my friend's ex-wife, had said to me, she said, I always say when I see your post and your information, wow, she has an adventurous soul. She is a brave woman. She's like, but I never told you. She's like, I just think it. So now I'm telling you. And I was like, oh, so you don't just think I'm crazy? She's like, not in the least bit. But that's a time concept. 20 years ago, people thought I was crazy. Now people are starting to realize digital nomads and a nomadic lifestyle is not craziness. Okay? No. And I think inside me, what I always say is, why not? That's my drive. Why not? Why not? Like if someone called me right now and said, hey, come to Warsaw for the weekend, there's a big event. I'm about 5 hours on train from Warsaw. I would do it. I actually do Warsaw, but I would do it because why not? Because too much of what we allow to happen in our lives, we allow to happen to us.
Yes.
Us controlling it. I could come up with 100 barriers of why I shouldn't have come to Krakow. Everything from health to money to I'm still paying my rent back home in an apartment no one's in. All of those things were in the way. At one point, I was going to store my car, and then I realized, why pay for it if I'm not here?
That's right.
Sell it. I just sold it back to the car lot. But all those barriers stop people. So I think what I've been able to do is to say, no, this is what I'm doing. I will overcome those barriers. And once I start a plan, it has to come to fruition. I am not stopping. I mean, I could have stopped, halfway into this 18 months and just said, oh my goodness, you guys are just killing me. I mean, I created an entire class for this university here for them to then tell me it was the wrong class. A class they gave me. And then they emailed and they said, oops, someone else already is teaching that subject. So I had to create a second class, but I did it. I found out they don't use any books here. So I have to find articles and other things to supplement. Luckily, I kind of asked that question because they haven't told me anything. I've had to ask every single question. My first day of class, I have no office. I go in, I said, what happened? I still don't know what happened. I just know I can't use that office, but I don't know why. So we went to another room. It was an empty room. I said, I need a computer. I need a printer. I'm coming to work. So they put me in a third room. This was just Tuesday. So all those things in the way, just let them happen. Right. So then I go down to my classroom and the door's locked. So I go back up the stairs. I got a lot of steps in that day. And I say, my door's locked. She goes, oh yeah, you have to get your key. And she's trying to explain to me where to get the key. And I said, how about you just come with me? Obviously. She said, oh yeah, good idea. But I had to ask. So this is something I worry about the culture here. They will do anything I ask, but I have to ask. They are not proactive. They've told me nothing. I said, well, can I print? Oh, there's a printer in that room. So the printer jammed. on their computer, Word wasn't updated, probably because no one had been on this computer in a while. So I couldn't use Word or PowerPoint because it wasn't updated. So I go back to the woman's office. She calls IT. The IT guy comes. So they're willing to do that. Treat IT. Because one had to unjam the printer. They were all nice, no problem. But I had to ask. So that must be a cultural kind of norm. Everything I want here, I have to ask. So there's been tons of barriers. I mean, tons. At one point, I was like, is this on purpose? Are you really trying?
I heard it.
And people swore it wasn't, but learning that, okay. And so I'm not a ask for help kind of person, or I haven't been traditionally. But what I realized in this culture is I have to be. And technically, I'm not asking for help. I'm really asking you to do what you should have already done.
Exactly.
If you would have just done your part. But since I realized that's not going to happen, Thursday I go in for a meeting with my research group. She's late. And I'm a very timely person, so I'm just waiting there. Very nice. She's late. We do our thing. Well, then when I try to go back to the room, it's locked. So the person who has the key is not in her office. So I'm texting her. So I'm just standing in the, people are like, what are you doing? I said, waiting for key. She comes running with the key. I was in a meeting, but I'm like, oh, it's okay. I'm not saying I'm in a hurry. I just need, but so everything's locked. And so every day I have to find people with keys. And no one ever said this. No one said your classroom is locked. You have to go get the key. No. And there was a class before mine in there because I went earlier to look and somebody was in there. So, all this kind of challenges, sometimes frustrating, but I've learned that it is what it is.
Yes.
What would be the point of being upset? And I'm telling you, 10 years ago, I would have
accomplished, really.
Yeah, I would have been fuming 10 years ago. I would have been, what is wrong with them? Instead, I just kind of smiled and nodded, said thank you a lot, and went about my day.
Wow.
Because that's the other thing that you want to not do. Don't make yourself that person. Because you throw one fit, you say one thing that the culture you're in considers inappropriate, and you become that person.
And you become.
Yeah, and we're already those people because we're from the U.S., so they already have that kind of perception that we're entitled and we're spoiled, and so just I want to say, stay in your lane when you're in someone's country. Stay in your lane.
I like that.
And then what keeps driving me is each of those people I meet. I've learned more from a lady on a bus. I've learned reading 10 articles. I just recently learned quite a bit about the war in the Ukraine because I'm right on the border. So it's maybe it's a thirst for knowledge that keeps me going.
Yes.
I mean, just random people have changed my life. I've met people where I met a guy on a bus to Key West from Miami, literally, actually on the way back from Key West back to Miami, German guy, sitting on a bus, talking out loud to no one in particular. He was just talking. He'd been to 177 countries.
Oh my goodness.
He's my best friend for 3 hours.
But there's something to be said about who you are. And I know our time is getting limited, but I want you to discuss that because who you are, you're an adventurer, but you talked about not being rude. You're talking about you're in their country, but I think a lot has to do with how you see the world and who you are as an individual. And like you said, maybe 10 years ago, that would have, made you upset, but where you are today, give us some of that information, what it is that we need to do and I'm not saying just be like you, but to be more like you, to let things, as my mother would say, let it run off your back like water running off a duck's back. She would say that. And I was like, as a kid, like, what does that mean?
What duck?
Water.
What duck?
Right? But, tell us and give us some highlights and things that we should be doing. I know I'm saying a lot, but there's so much here that is so deep and so wonderful. It isn't just about traveling. It's about living your life to the fullest. So you have the floor, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it.
That saying that you only regret what you didn't do.
Yes.
Yeah. I probably have only one thing in my actual life, and this is honesty, one thing that happened ever in all of my years that I regret. Everything else would have been a regret that I didn't do.
Mm.
And since I don't want to do that, I just do it. But and you'll laugh at this, but it's funny. One of the only good things, in my opinion, about aging, because I'm fighting that battle every fiber of my being, is it took me to almost 50 to really grow up.
Mm.
Yeah. And then there was something about turning 50 that clicked onto my brain to why? Why get upset about things that I have no control over? If I was standing there yelling in the hallway, I need my key, that wouldn't have changed any situation, just make me look like an idiot. And so there's something about that, and keeping in mind always, why am I here? What's my end goal? What's my purpose? And is my purpose to make sure I have all the keys? Is my purpose to make sure they're on time? I mean, I would appreciate it, but that's not my purpose.
No.
So keeping all that, running around in my head. Like I said, I find myself getting challenged and upset in situations in other countries. Strange enough, it doesn't bother me. The lack of language skills doesn't bother me. It's more the nonverbal language that might affect me that I may not appreciate. But I get over it. So I think part of what makes me me is that military background. Okay.
Mm.
I was raised in the Army. My dad was in the Army when I was born. So I was born on a military base. So I'm always a new kid.
Oh,
So I learned from a very young age how to make friends, how to meet people, because I was always a new kid. In the military, every 3 years or so, you're moving.
that's it.
You know?
Gone.
Yeah, so you have to make new friends. And I did this at a time where there wasn't internet and social media. So even keeping up with your friend, your best friend for 3 years, with writing letters. And within a year or two, those letters stop and you've never seen those people again.
Right.
I actually have a friend that met me in Germany when we were kids, who found me on Facebook.
Oh
And
my
we're friends. Yeah, we've actually met in person. She didn't just find me on Facebook. Yes, she actually sent me a message. She said, "Are you the Marvee Marr that our dads worked together in Germany?" And I replied, "Do you know another Marvee Marr?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, I do." So I knew her 6, 7, 8 years old, and we're friends again. You know, so that helps having an unusual name. But all of that experience, all of that bravado, all of that, be strong, be strong, be strong, be who you want to be your voice. I've heard that my whole life, but it took time, it took age. A few years ago, actually, I think during COVID, maybe 20, no, right before COVID, I met up with a friend from high school, a male friend who I haven't seen since high school. And we happened both to be in St. Louis, so we had lunch. And we're on Facebook together, so we know of each other. I know he moved to Arizona, stuff like that. And he actually left St. Louis, moved to Arizona just to come out because he couldn't be around people, family that weren't going to accept it. So we're out. we have a day together. We're laughing, and he tells me, he says, "I always had a crush on you in high school, even though he's gay." And he said, "But I also had a crush on your brother." My brother didn't appreciate that. I thought it was funny.
I'm
But
sure.
to me, that stuck in my brain was, he said, "When did you become a diva?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Remember, I've known you since you were like 15 years old. So, I was always me, but I wasn't as confident, I guess." And I told him, I said, "I don't probably think I made divahood or whatever you want to call it until my 40s. It took that long. It took into my 40s to be able to wear what I want to wear. You know me, my sunglasses, my hats. I had to be, you have to be strong to walk around
Yes,
like that because
you
people
do.
stare at
You
you. And
do.
not necessarily in a bad way, but you get attention, and not
Yeah.
necessarily attention I want. I'm dressing that way because I like it, but it does draw attention. People always think you're someone famous, which is hilarious. Well, there's a
Yes.
black one with a big black. She must be a singer. I've used that to my advantage in some countries. Uh, you want to believe it? Yeah, give me the perks. So all of that together, just all this, I don't know what you call it, all this experience.
Mm,
That's a nice word for it, actually.
that
All
is.
this experience, from being a child of the military to being the first kid in, to being able to meet a friend everywhere, anywhere, to as an adult saying, I'm going to do this. And I've always been that person who's had a wide variety of people in my circle.
Mhm.
I had gay friends in high school before it was, chic and stuff like that. I've had Black friends, white friends. We had one guy from Guam in my high school, and he was my friend. People didn't realize what he meant. He literally stood up and said, I'm Guamanian. And they said, what does that mean? Like, it means he's from Guam.
Oh my goodness.
And they're like, what's Guam? Which was also a U.S. territory.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I was his friend.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a friend recently from high school, junior high, I've known her for a while, say, you stuck up for me. I said, what? She said, whenever people bullied me, you were, and I don't remember that, but I think it's just who I am. I'm not going to allow that to happen. So when I put all of that craziness together, even my health issues make me strong.
Mm-hmm.
Because I need to take care of me. I can't just, it'll be okay. No, it won't.
That's right.
All of that together came into this package and said, you can do whatever you want to do.
That's right.
And that's the bottom line. I can do whatever I want to do. And remember, and ladies, you don't know me, or women, I don't have any children. So literally, any decision I make in my life only impacts me. I mean, obviously, my entire circle of friends and family may be upset, but really, it's about me. Okay? And that might sound selfish.
No.
It is. But we all need to be selfish. We all need to think about us, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you don't make you number one, who is going to make you number one?
Nobody. And you're speaking my language. Yes.
Wants to do this. Me says, right now I'm thinking, I need to get back to Africa. And so I'm looking at things to go to Africa because I've only been to a couple countries. Yeah. So, just all that kind of, I need to do this and I'm going to do it. And I will find a way to do it.
And I jump in here right now because there's something I also want to add is you do what you want to do. And what I hear is you can't wait for other people to do it with you. You've got to do what you want. If you wait on other people, you may never get to where you're going. And I love the fact it's what I say, this is what I'm going to do. And now I ask you if you want to go. But if you don't show up, I'm going to keep it moving.
Oh,
I
definitely.
love that. And
that's another barrier, especially for women, because traveling alone can be dangerous. I'm never going to say it's not, but that's a big barrier. People tell me all the time, well, I want to travel, but my friends don't have the money or don't have the time. And being primarily an academic for the last 2 decades, I know when my time off is. So, and to this day, I have friends I've known for 30 years that will say, well, my vacation's in April. I'm like, well, not mine. I mean, I'm a professor. I leave when school's out. And they act like they don't know that, which is very strange because how long have they known me? I have a friend recently, I said, why don't we do something in the summer or meet me? And he said, why don't we look into the fall? I said, you know what the word fall means for an academic? Work.
Yes.
The second we say autumn, fall, immediately work.
That's right. You're in another semester.
Yeah. And he's known me 30 something years. So how do you not? Yeah. So, knowing that and them knowing that means they have plenty of warning. They know it's going to be spring break, a holiday break, and summer. They know it. So the excuses are on them. I've had friends telling me they're going to show up and not even show. I actually have booked a hotel with the friend. She's still my friend too. Not once, but twice that she has even showed up. So the first time I let it slide, I said, okay, whatever. And I'm at an event where people know us, so they're like, where is she? I said, no. The second time I said, you're paying me.
Yes.
Because I booked that based on us. So when she does that, she does pay me. So other than that, other people would probably get upset because now you're alone. I was alone. I'm at an event, but I like me and I have no problem being by myself. And so I did. I played the whole I can't try. Oh my God, I tell you, I used to buy everybody's tickets. So if we're going on a trip, I used to have a timeshare in Cancun back when I was in my 20s. So I was young, me and my friend. I would buy everybody's ticket to Cancun and everything, and then they would have to pay me back. Well, to this day, people owe me money. So I stopped doing that. Then I got to where I would still book everything, but you'd have to give me the money of your credit card. So I'm like a travel agent. So I got people, and people trust me with credit card, which cracks me up too. Just give me your credit card. Oh, yeah. People give me money. It's like, we trust you. So I would book everything. Well, now Yeah, I'm selfish. Now, this is how I tell people I'm going places. I tell them, and that's it. I'm taking this cruise on these dates. I will
Mhm.
be in Krakow these dates. What you do is on you. I don't even pretend to plan with them anymore. And people do get angry. They do. But that's on you. Like once I had a friend say, "What are you doing for the Christmas holidays?" Because she knows I'm going to travel. I tell her, I said, "Well, I'm looking into X, Y, and Z." She tries to convince me to do something else. I'm pretty honest and straightforward. So I just keep saying, I'm not doing that. I'm doing one of these three things.
Mhm.
And I make this clear. You may join me or you may not. That's fine. Either way. In the end, she doesn't. And then tells me she's mad at me because she wasn't party to the decision. And I say, because you didn't say, let's plan a vacation together. You said, what are you doing? And I
Exactly.
told you what I was doing.
I
That's
don't need a
up to
coded
you.
method. Yes, I don't need
Exactly.
a
Like I
coded method.
literally said, I'm doing one of these three things. Which would you prefer? You know, I'm going to pick one. So we're still friends, so she got over it. But that's another barrier, and that's fear. You know, if you go without your friends, are they going to be mad?
And
And
it's gonna be
get over
mad.
it. Yeah, they'll get
Yes,
over
get
it.
over it.
I mean, I have friends that work for airlines, so they can fly for free. So
That's
that's
right.
on them. You know, right now here, I've had all these people that are coming to visit. Not yet one has booked a plane ticket. I I didn't even I don't even react to that stuff anymore. I say, okay, I'll see you because you're
Mhm.
either going to do it
You're
or
either
you're not.
coming or you're not.
Exactly. And you better tell me ahead of time because I may not be here. Because I have some friends come up from Prague who really are coming, but they were very specific. Like, these are the dates. Make sure you're there. Because I travel when I'm traveling too. I travel within my travel.
I
Like I'm
love
going to go to Warsaw. I might go to Scotland. You know, I'm in Europe. Get around. You know.
exactly.
Yeah. So for people who that's your barrier, don't wait for people.
I love
Don't
it.
wait for people. And I will tell you. Okay, I'm fairly outgoing, so it's not hard for me to meet people. I haven't met a lot of people in Poland, probably because of the lack of speaking Polish, and I haven't really been out. That's my choice. I mean, you know, I can like a friend of mine said, "I can't believe you haven't been out." And they said, "But that's my choice. I still have three jobs. I'm still working every
Still
day."
working.
Yeah.
That's right.
So the people I have met have been at work, obviously, you know, and they've been very nice. They're like, "You want to do something that we can let us know?" You know, there's no issue with that. But at first I thought, why am I being like this? Why don't I go to a bar or whatever? And then again, I remember because I don't want to.
Mhm.
And that's hard because being a social being, when I choose not to be social, people find that really weird. I think COVID really kind of cemented that because we couldn't go out. And so now, I mean, I live in Utica. There's a bar in my building. I've been there 3 times in 3 years. And it's in the building because I just don't want to do that.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's a social thing. So here, what do I do socially? I take tours. I've gone to Auschwitz, very
Mhm.
sad, Schindler's Factory,
Mm.
city tour, and there's other people on the tour. And I take the tours in English, so everybody on the tour speaks
No,
English.
it's
So
English.
I've met some Scottish people. I met a local lady who wants to, you know, I've had massages. I have a massage person here. It helps with my migraines. So Maria's her name. She's Russian. She's a friend. You know, so I this is really a different experience than my past experiences. So it's the challenge has been finding the happy medium because usually you're either on vacation, like I'm only here a week or two, so I have to do everything,
Right.
or
And
I'm
you're
here
trying
for a
to
year
be
or two because I'm living here. So I've got like I'm in the middle. So it's kind of like I have to have my normal daily life every day, you know, teaching, working, publishing, and so then I just do things on weekends, just like I was living here. But there people expect differently. Like they're like, well, where are your tours and all your sightseeing? I'm working. And so, you know, it's the idea is difficult. It's difficult for me because it's in the between what I normally do. It's not vacation and it's not living somewhere over a
right.
year. It's just enough time that I feel like if I just take tours and go to museums on the weekends, I'll get it all done before I leave. You know? Or even traveling. Like, you went to Prague. Why wouldn't I go to Prague? I have friends there. I went to see friends. I didn't go to see the city. I live there. You know, so there, I think with what I realize, and it's hard to put into words, is that whatever the barrier is, 90% of the time, it's on us.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fear. Your barrier. Lack of money is even on you because it's probably not really the reason. That's just something people think it is. Not speaking the language, that's on you. You know, I don't speak the language, and thus far, it hasn't really been an issue. I've only had a couple people try to have conversations and then realize I.
But
But again,
I don't like the fact that you're saying it's on me. Why is it only on me? What, you know, why? Why is it only on me? I'm
to,
just, I know
to
the
speak the
answer.
language or to which part?
The first part about, going somewhere, doing something, speaking all of it, actually.
Yeah.
Why is it on me?
Well, because barriers are usually our own. They're in our head. You know? So it's all on me. I mean, I chose to come to Poland not speaking Polish. That is not the people who live here's fault. It's not my job at home's fault. It's all me. And for me, it's not an issue. I haven't had any problems really. But for others, it might be. Because this is the thing. A lot of communication is nonverbal. Just pay attention. But what's missing, and this is probably what would bother people, is some of that social interaction, like I said, because I can't speak the language. So if I'm in public and I hear people, like 5 people, even at work, they speak Polish, they're not speaking to me. You can you can internalize that, which I have when I was younger, and think, oh wow, I don't even know what's going on. I've been to meetings that are in different languages. I just leave. I'm like, gee, I'm out because why am I here? I'm in Slovakia. I walked out on mini meetings. I was like, okay, but instead of internalizing that and thinking that makes me a bad person or something, it just is what it is. And I don't think most of them expect me to speak Polish because they know
No,
I'm not Polish. Though I
no.
did have this lady the other day, literally just started speaking, and she looked happy. So it wasn't like she was yelling at me. She was very like, "Oh, it was at the bus stop. Hi!" And I was like, and finally I said, "I don't speak Polish," and she seemed sad. She seemed like she just really wanted to tell something. And obviously, she didn't speak English because most people here, the second I say hello in English, they convert over to English and then they
Mhm.
start speaking. So
Mhm.
obviously, she didn't, and she just seemed sad though. She didn't seem like it's like she just really wanted to share something, and I was the person that was there, and I couldn't understand it. And I felt kind of bad. I was like, sorry,
Wow.
but those are barriers we create. So if I listen to doctors, my lack of language skills, my lack of finances, my fear, I would never do it. So do it once. And if you don't like it, don't do it again.
I love
But
that.
give it a try.
At
Hey,
least,
and some kids is a big barrier I hear because people always say to me, "You can do it because you don't have children." Again, that was a choice I made. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice I made. But I have a female friend who I met on a ship. She took her 3 kids out of
yeah.
school for a year and traveled with them. And they probably learned more in all those travels, because 2 of them just graduated from high school, than they would have they're Canadian. They would have that year in school. So even
That's
I have
good.
another friend who has a small kid, like 6. They're doing some kind of safari in Africa right now. Her and the 6-year-old. Oh yeah, because they're in South Africa because she's white, but she's a white South African. Um, so that again, that's a barrier, but that barrier's on you. You have to decide. You know, my niece, the one who just published the children's book, and her daughter, my great niece, she's got her traveling already. She's just turned 8. She's already been to 2 other countries. Think about what our children would know and learn
Yes, yes,
if
yes.
if we took them outside of this bubble that we live in here and let them see the world.
It changes them. It does. I mean, my son is 52, and when we first came back to the United States, and he was hanging out with his friends, being a teenager and everything, he would never tell his friends he learned how to play the chanter, which is the bagpipes. I was like, "You're gonna get some bagpipe lessons." And
You're playing those bagpipes.
oh, mom, but I made sure my daughters learned Highland dancing. They went to Scottish schools. That experience changed them. It changed them who they are, and they're not afraid to venture out. And so travel, when they were younger, I seen less travel. I see families traveling now that I
Much more, yeah.
and I'm so grateful for that, because you open up a world. And it was like my grandson, my daughter decided to homeschool him. His trip was to Philadelphia to understand history, to go see what he was learning, because
It's everywhere in Philly. You can't walk anywhere in Philly without seeing it.
And that's the reason why kids don't like history, because the way it's taught, it doesn't affect me. Or how does it affect me? You have to experience it. So you have the last word. Whatever you want to tell the audience, please tell them whatever you want to tell them.
The interesting about history is I know a lot of European history because I was raised in Europe. And when you take any type of tour in Europe, it all centers around the wars, because
Yep.
World War I, World War II,
That's right.
everything in Europe, it connects. Obviously World War II here in Poland, because everything is about that war and concentration camps, etc. And I had a tour guide. I got a private tour because everybody else spoke Spanish. So I had the private tour guide. And she said to me, she goes, "You're the first American I've ever met that actually knows this much about history." And I said, well, when I realized that history, that wars specifically, that knowing the wars and important dates, like when slavery ended, etc., everything is connected to that. Yeah. I was in Savannah, and I was staying at this place in a cottage, and I I said to some people, I said, well, I'm staying behind the big house. And when I said the word big house, immediately my brain was like, wait a second, am I staying in the slaves' quarters? So I Googled it. Well, the place opened in 1935, which means obviously it's not slave quarters. I said that to people who didn't understand that. They said, what do you mean? How do you know it's not slave quarters? I said, because it opened in 1935. Well, what does that mean? Well, slavery ended in 1865. So that would be kind of hard.
Right.
Yeah, but knowing those dates, just knowing those major, if nothing else in this whole universe brings us all together are those major wars,
Yes, true.
because everybody was there, and when I'm thinking about World War II here, a lot of World War II happened before we entered, because we didn't enter 1941. And so I was on a tour, and someone said to them, they said, oh, and then the Americans entered. I said, we were there. But knowing that, being able, that connects everything. But to me, culture, understanding and respecting culture is the key to a happy existence abroad. Being able to look at a situation and not judge it from our ethnocentric point of view, that this is how we do it back home, to just accept it for whatever it is and move on. Because you're in their, you don't vote here. I'm not going to change law here. I'm not going to do anything. So that's how they behave. This is what they want to do. And it's hard. It's very hard to not want to think we do it better, or the way we do it is better. Well, it's not hard nowadays, but in the past it was a little bit more difficult. Now it's not as difficult. But just knowing that it's like I said, I can't say this enough. Walking into somebody else's country is like walking to a person's house. I walked into your home. If you want me to take my shoes off, I take my shoes off. If you're hot, your house is very hot and I'm sweating, it's your house, it's your heat. Just accepting it, and not accepting it as in I have to go home and do it, but just accepting the fact that I don't control it. Accepting that. So that's one, it's just accept the culture for what it is. And two is, remember, your barriers are mostly in your head, and overcome them if this is what you want to do. And the third thing, as I told my friend, you can always leave. There's nothing keeping you. I know people who've gone to a country for like a week and like, okay, I can't do this. And they just move on. Yeah. Give it more than a week. I'm going to say that if you plan to live there,
Yes.
give it more than a week. But they can't. They said every job I've ever had, someone has left in the middle of a semester. But if you ask that person, I always tell them, I go, you do an exit interview with those people. Those are the people you need to talk to, because you need to find out why
they
don't, of course, but you need to. And a couple of people I'm still in touch with, so they're friends. And one said, I just didn't like it. And to me, I don't try to look at the world that cut and dry. I like it, I don't like it, that type of thing. What didn't you like? She didn't like the city, not just like the job. She didn't like the city. It was boring. What it was. I nicknamed it Boreon. Everybody's like, oh, that's clever. It was Toreo, and I named it Boreon. Wasn't that big deal? But really, is that a reason to walk out on a contract? So I think we also have to look deep inside on what motivates us.
Mm-hmm.
Because she wanted to go to this other city in Mexico she'd been to before and thought that was prettier, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm not in Krakow because I think it's the most beautiful city in the world. I mean, it is a nice city, but I'm here to learn the culture, to do a job, to meet some people. People keep asking me, have you settled in? Settled into what? Yeah. I wake up like I do at home, do work. I mean, short of not speaking the language, it's like sometimes I forget I'm in Krakow. I'll be honest. I really do. I wake up and I don't even think about it because I'm at home. I'm just sitting here on a computer. It's not until I go somewhere. Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't speak the language. But it's kind of funny.
You have a great attitude. You just have a great attitude. And I think that's part and parcel of you see the possibilities in everything. And that's really what people have to do. And I know I said I give you the last word, now I'm talking. But you see the possibilities. And I just definitely want to thank you for sharing. We're going to have you come back because I've got some other questions that I want you to answer later if you will come back, because we want to have part 2 to this. And it's really, really important because there's your life and then there's your life. And, and so I want to get to that. But first and foremost, I am so honored to have you here. I thank you for being here, and we will actually see you next time. So
thank you, everybody. Keep on traveling. That's a motto.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining us today on Passion and Purpose. It's been wonderful to connect with you, and I hope you found our conversation as enlightening and inspiring as I have. A huge thanks to our guests who contributed to the discussion and shared their experiences and insights. Your stories are the heartbeat of this podcast, and it's a joy to explore our passions and purpose together. I'm Pamela, reminding you to live with passion and purpose. Until next time, take care and keep reaching for your dreams.